And we're live. Welcome back, everybody. It's Spence. It is Friday, January 17th, 2025. I am now fully used to saying 2025. Checking the audio. Fully used to. All right. It's a great start when that kicks in. Without me prompting myself, I want to say hi to everybody. Today, I'm going to try to do a little more hodgepodge of stuff. It's not going to be without a purpose, because we're going to do you don't need a membership plugin, but I'm going to throw in a bunch of other questions that came into play about the various things that are easily accomplished when you're using marketing automation and tags. I got to get my show and tell here. And tags instead of using a traditional membership plugin situation, which is really an appendix these days. It's really redundant. So I want to say hi to everybody or anybody who is here. If you are, just go ahead and comment. Hello, hello. And I'm just going to post this out here real quick, just before I jump in, because I know that I have in the past not told people it's starting, and I just go ahead and do this real quick, and that way some folks catch it off of social media. I hope you guys have been having a good start to the year. So far, I've been really, really excited. I've been doing the quick tips, and many of you have complimented on the fact that you appreciate getting the notice of something cool. And yesterday, I did a really fun one, which I'm quite honestly just going to expand upon. I'm going to tease you a little bit more after I'm done with today. But the idea of the AI virtual Spence, something that I've toyed around with and teased for some time. Almost done here, by the way. And I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned so far, because I'm going to be doing more with it, but I don't want it to escape notice that it's something on my radar of how we can integrate it into the system so that you can use the leverage of the AI tools, but not take away from the humanity, which is something that we're going to talk about today with the membership site. Okay. Sorry for my distracted. I'm like texting and driving at the same time, I feel like, and I'm sorry about that, but the idea is I want to make sure everybody understands that there's something they can come join us for. Okay, let's jump in. Today, what we're going to do is talk about the essence of really all of the things that I think most of you are trying to accomplish, which is to track the user's journey and then to give access or to control the environment based upon what they acquire. And the basic concept is, instead of needing a third-party plugin, let me make this a little smaller. Instead of needing a third-party plugin like in the old days that would have essentially taken care of some of the features, we already have the features into the kit, into the membership that you're going to use. And the benefits of doing this are that you are getting at least 2, maybe 3 times multiplier. Number one, by getting rid of a redundant plugin, you remove what's otherwise a pinch point in your operation. That is to say, if you look at the software that we're using for most of the primary features, that is really well developed, really well maintained, and the authors have an incentive financially to keep up with what we need them to keep up with. And so that way, it's like a factory where everybody's independently producing their parts on the assembly line. Each person is incentivized to do the best with their parts. Whereas, although I'm not pointing any fingers, what happens otherwise is you get a membership plugin and you put it in place and all the rest of your systems work awesome, but then it becomes the pinch point where all the technology seems to fall apart. And that was one of the Frankenstein monster problems that I think over time I realized can be cured by this curation process. So eliminating a paid membership type of a plugin, first of all, eliminates the pinch point of the technology and that author. Number two is that the methodologies are like mixing up. We've seen so often in my office hours or in some of the videos that like people can't even agree on what to call something, even in WordPress core, right? Like, why can't we call it a sidebar? Why does it have to be called blankety blank? Why is the steering wheel on the car by one plugin called a circular directional control device instead of a steering wheel? So by eliminating extra plugins, we also eliminate the metaphors that are brought into play about you setting it up and the users using it, which also reduces the cognitive load of what am I playing with, right? When you go to Legos, they're Lego blocks. There's only, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, rectangular shapes, sometimes circles. They all can snap together like IKEA furniture. So what we do is, by eliminating the paid membership type plugins, we also prevent that extra part that's just not going to fit with everything. And then finally, the most important is that when you're using this metaphor, hello tags, somebody once became a customer, but when I first met him, he was bugging on me with using all these like tags. By using tags, we have a universal language. This is kind of like, I don't want to say speaking Spanish or speaking English. It's a language that is used by a majority of people around the world, even if their native language is otherwise, because it prevents the Tower of Babel problem. Why do we need to use additional mechanisms for tracking people's behavior or for limiting access when we've already got things that we're going to give them and take away in the form of tags? Okay, let's go into a real world example. The general gist of what we're doing with the tags versus a membership plugin is we want to track somebody's journey from being a cold lead to a warm prospect to being a paid, hopefully, member. Now, they could be a free member if you have the kind of community or if you have the kind of content that you want to give out without money. But the concept is the same, regardless of whether it's $0 or not. So let's just jump in. I'll give you some examples because this seems like it may be redundant, but the big difference is I want to show you how this works now in some of the spaces like we talked about. So I'm going to use, been using this in previous office hours. This is the community site that we've just used as a metaphor. It uses the launch kit setup and all the tools. And what I've got on here are some of the key plugins, right? So I've got, let's go on the back end. I've got the stack set up with WP Fusion, Fluent CRM. Let's actually look at plugins. Hold on. All right, it looks like I've got a lot more active than I need to, but some of these are mechanical. Like, so admin menu editor, that allows me to organize the main menu. Autocomplete WooCommerce orders means that when I do this product today that's a virtual product or not, it's automatically going to take the money. It's not going to sit around waiting for me to deliver something via a shipment. Block visibility is what we're using on the front end to control conditionally the display of various things if somebody has a tag or doesn't. Click Whale I'm going to show you because I've got a trick today that I was using with Fluent CRM and Magic Links, and that is to track when somebody gets an email, whether they've clicked and gone to a particular link. I can do that with Click Whale using the regular old email, mail to : link, which I'll show you in a couple seconds. Duplicate page just allows me to clone things. Fluent forms and messaging. These, this is the forums, this is the chat for the community. Here's the community plugins. We've got Fluent CRM as our CRM. This would apply to any CRM that's compatible with WP Fusion, but why wouldn't you use Fluent CRM at this point, honestly? Fluent SMTP, I'm going to share a trick today about how you can get started quickly if you wanted to for a client who doesn't want to sign up for a custom email or a domain. Cadence Blocks Pro, Launch Flows, Launch Kit, which organizes this whole kit and caboodle. I'm going to show you a little cool thing that was handy with resizable editor sidebar. I'll come to that in a second first. And then WooCommerce Checkout Manager, which allows us to adjust the fields. Stripe Gateway, just as an example. WooCommerce subscriptions, WP Fusion. And then I actually put in the logins add-on, although there's plenty of other add-ons. This will allow us to also keep track of what to do with somebody the first time. So I'm going to mix a lot of these together, but let me first hodgepodge in. I want to show you a few tricks. First of all, the resizable page editor is a really handy plugin for one purpose only. I think it's a couple, but watch this. If I go to add a new page, Dr. Kerry Krieger was the inspiration on this plugin, and I had originally started to write it myself, and I realized these other guys had it. So notice on a page in the Gutenberg editor, with this plugin, we now have control over not just the popping out of the left sidebar, which, by the way, could use some control itself, so I may extend it. But on here, this is where I find this very useful. Let's say I'm creating a page and I want to put in like an image block. Everything is awesome, except, watch. If I put the, let's select an image from the library. Okay. Let's say I want to deal with something to do with the link settings. Okay. When I click on this, and I try to put a URL in here. See how small this is? Now, I know this doesn't sound like much, but let's just, for example, let's copy this image address. If we were to paste this in there, see how it's already rolling? I hope you can see that. It's already fallen out the side. I got to scroll all over. What I prefer is if I use this tool. I know this seems ridiculous, doesn't it? But this allows me to actually get to that whole URL string and then drag it back. I would love it if the Cadence folks, I talked to Dr. Krieger about this. I would love it if the Cadence folks would adjust two things on this. First of all, if they would make this image link thing come out of the box like WP Fusion does. I'll show you that in a second. And second of all, if they made it where you could just have, for example, default settings for open a new tab or have this open by default, that would be awesome. It would save just a bunch of clicks and drags. But this tool allows me the ability to get to stuff that would otherwise be a real pain in the tuchus, okay? Especially when you're doing things like setting parameters at the end on the right side. Let me show you an example, what I mean. If I were to go to the page and I use WP Fusion, I'm 100% sure. No, I'm 99.9% sure this is going to work. Watch what happens here. If we use the feature, for example, that says restrict access, page or URL. If you click on it and I type, let me see if I'm wrong here. Hold on. WPLaunch5.com. No, I'm wrong, but the point still is the same. For some reason, I thought with this one that it popped out. I guess I was in the middle of a dream of future interfaces. Nevertheless, whether it be for the WP Fusion one or any of the other tools, it does become a handy option. So hopefully that point has come across, and it doesn't really, it's a very lightweight plugin. It doesn't really do much otherwise. So you don't have to worry about breaking your site with it. I want to show you a second trick before I go farther, because I'm throwing a bunch of tricks out here. I had mentioned about Fluent SMTP. I want to talk about something that is really relevant. And if you guys have had this problem, when I started out with LaunchKit in 2024 as a thing, I was pre-configuring everything as packages, which included, if you go to settings, Fluent SMTP, which included that I was setting up the SMTP with like preloaded things. Here's the deal. When you're using Rocket as the host, which is one of the options that I suggest you should do, whether you get it from me at a wholesale discount or you get it directly as an agency, they technically aren't doing SMTP delivery services, right? They're just not. That's not their business. They shouldn't be. That's awesome that they're not. But when you're setting up the site, you kind of want the basics to work, right? Because you need to test, are people getting the proper emails at the right time? If you have no other SMTP connection and you don't connect this plugin, in other words, if literally you go over here to plugins, install plugins, and you turn off Fluent SMTP, I discovered, deactivate, that the cool thing is that Rocket.net will actually deliver the email. So in other words, it will recognize the basics of a simple transactional email from WordPress, so that other than probably your email client saying this is probably spam because of the weird URL, it will actually go out. But that's not really a great way to test the system, because like it's catch as catch can. I just want you to know it is possible. So let's talk real quickly about a better way. If I go over here again and reactivate Fluent SMTP, I'm going to show you a couple tricks. Number one is I'm going to be publishing a quick tip that's 10 of the really easy to use, free, up to anywhere between 100, 200, or 500 emails a day services. Not the least of which, one of which is Google, Gmail, or Google Workspace. That's actually going to be my number one recommendation. So instead of SendGrid as the starting point for some of your clients, you can actually just have them use their Gmail account, or you have them set up a Google Workspace, which is where a lot of other benefits come. So if you go to workspace.google, it's $6 a month now. I think Google must have got, I don't know. I don't know why it says $7. They literally changed that last night or something. So it was $6 yesterday. It's $7. Fine. Inflation comes to town. $7 allows them a couple things. First of all, I think the number of emails goes from 500 a day or 24-hour period up to either 2,000 or 5,000. I want to say it's 5,000. How many emails a day on Google Workspace? 2,000. Okay. That's pretty darn good if you want more than 500 a day. And if you have an ordinary site and the person's starting out, so for $7, they get a domain that looks good, feels good, and that the recipients are going to be like, yeah, let's do this. And it allows them in line, if you don't want them to bother with GoDaddy, to buy the domain through Google, which isn't the best, but it's the second best from using, let's say, GoDaddy for that. And it's easy. So you can get out of the whole two-factor authentication shenanigans of SendGrid and all the other things that are hard. And this is really easy to get started. But more importantly is if we go over here to settings, Fluent SMTP, it's very easy to get started. Here's why. Yes, if you have Google Workspace, you can use this and you can put the email and the client ID and all that stuff. But there's an even easier way. If you just go over here and you have a Gmail account or you use the same email, you can go in over here and use other SMTP and just put in a live email like help@wplaunchify.com. I use Google Workspace. That's my thing. And you can force it to say, Spence from WP Launchify. So even if it's a weird, wacky Google Gmail they've got, like, Spence1234 at Gmail, you can force the name to be something more palatable. Just click this checkbox. Now, the host is really easy. I'm going to sneeze. That's why I'm doing this. Just do smtp.gmail.com. And then the port is typically you want to choose port 465, which means they'll get the basic SSL. And then all you have to do is put in your email. I'm not going to type the whole thing so my business goes to town. But if you typed in your whole email for them, whether it's Gmail or not, and their password, ta-da, they're done. That will get them 500 emails a day in no configuration, no two-factor authentication, etc. There's a bunch of other services I'm going to review that start in the same way, very simple, including Brevo, SMTP to go, and a bunch of others. But like, man, oh man, deliverability is like 99%. So this is the way to go with that. Just wanted to share. Then when you set it up, you can decide, you can test it first of all live, but you can also decide once you've configured it to either use or don't use the mail trap. So like you can send out the emails to see that they're going live, but you can also just use the mail trap and always, as I've been showing you before, get the emails just right here and they don't have to go out whatsoever. But you can also see a log of all the previous emails so you can review them. All right. So super duper easy. Let's go back now to where we're at with the main premise. So using tags instead of a paid membership requires something that we want to use to manage the transactions as well as the dashboard. And for that, we're of course leaning on WooCommerce, which is the mainstay. And that opens up a bunch of other benefits as well, not the least of which is that WooCommerce is the most ubiquitous plugin around. So we get the benefit of all the cool things that we could hook into and change about the products and the services. I've talked about this before, but just to give you some sense, for example, just even when it comes to setting up the dashboard as a unified base for when people log in, has infinite benefits because WooCommerce is providing that for free. And even just out of the box using Cadence, we can do really cool basic layout stuff, or we can use the WooCommerce My Account Customizer that allows drag and drop simplicity, same as launch flows and so forth. So let's talk about a use case of onboarding somebody and using the tags versus a membership. First thing we need is a way to onboard them. And in today's world, we are not going to let them set up their own passwords. They're going to set up just with their email, because in so doing, that's the easiest way to get them in and registered and added to your CRM. But more importantly is it's a security measure today. Instead of them futzing around with like all these characters and letters and all the torture, just give your email, because what's going to happen is we'll put you in there now and maybe we'll hold you in abeyance until you do something or pay for something. But the email that goes to you has to go to a real email box. So yes, it is true. You could use some fake email like a mailinator or one-time email, but you still have to go through the process of getting that email, blah, 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 which is going to reduce a large majority of the problems from either spam bots, we're just cranking out new accounts with fake emails, or it's going to reduce the number of like confused Gen X boomers who are like, I forgot my email address and I cannot remember the password. I'm so confused. Because here's what happens. If you were to, for example, log out of this account, what happens is you are taken to a page that essentially reminds you. Let's try WP Launchify. Let's do WP Launch Kit. Okay. If I go to my account, let's do Launch Club because I have it. If I go to my account of WP Launch Club or any demo, my account, if I am logged in, it will show me my account. If I'm logged out, it's going to show me a unified way. Look at this link, lost password. That is going to ask you what's the email, and it's going to send it to that email. And when you get that link, it has a security one-time kind of nonce code in there that will allow you to gain access and to change it. So if you think about it, allowing people immediately to register with email, not set a password, get in there quickly, and then get tags is the best way to get things going versus trying to do the old-fashioned way, or gosh forbid, having to have some plugin like a paid memberships plugin manage that control. WooCommerce provides infinite amounts of benefits, and it's built into the dashboard of simplicity. So that gives us a mainstay of that. Okay, next, in the CRM, we really want to use one main list to manage this. Now, this is arguably based upon whether you've got a business with clients who are overlapping. So let's use the metaphor that I've talked about in the past of what do I do if I have 2 or 3 or 4 businesses and I want to use one CRM? Well, first of all, Fluent CRM will allow that to happen. You can have an infinite number of websites connected to one CRM hub. And that hub probably should best live on the site that also has your transactional engine of WooCommerce, because that way it's just a short go to the next office and say, Spence just signed up, here's his money, give him the tag. It doesn't have to go bouncing around. But nevertheless, because you can use one installation of Fluent CRM for multiple sites, it is possible that you can go ahead and create any array of businesses. If those clients could possibly ever be interested in the same thing you're talking about, make one list and put them all in there. Why? Because then you can just use segmentation to differentiate between them. So if I go over here to settings, or if I go to lists, let's go back over here. I clicked ahead and it put me on another screen. If I go over here to Fluent CRM lists, you will see that I only typically have one list called main list. If I have 10,000 or million people on there, I can give them tags. I can give them other criterion that are used to filter them out and segment them individually so that I could send campaigns, or I could send automations, or I could trigger various things. But the benefit of them being on one list is it's like if somebody was at a ballroom for a convention and there was 10,000 people and the only difference was what the people had on their, name tag. It's really easy to go, can anybody with Spence on the name tag line up over here? That's different than if you, for example, had to go into 10 different ballrooms or 10 different hotels. Is anybody in this hotel called Spence? That's just extra work for no reason. On the other hand, if those 10 hotels had 10 different types of conventions where dentists in one and trial attorneys in the other, they probably don't want to mix. So that's the criterion, one list to control where people go when they are added to the top of your funnel, either as a lead or as an actual prospect, or even better, as a paid customer. All right, so now that we've got that, we of course have the need to have tags. And tags are something that I've talked about many times, but as a basic premise, tags should be semantical so that when somebody down the road, not you, reads them, they understand what they do. and they should be formatted identically amongst all of them. So what I recommend is a semantical, maybe 2 or 3 part, it doesn't matter, format. It's first what it is and it's what it does or what they did, and then what it applies to. And if you need extra words, you can use extra words. So for example, action, subject of the action. Purchased, community. I got access to community. Subscribed, community. The difference between these is this would be a one-time purchase, for example, because it's one time. Purchase implies once. Subscribed means it's going to come and go. You can also create another one. This is where 3 words might work. Can access community. And then I can give it a label. Tag for controlling access to the community. Now, what is the difference? I've talked about this before, and I have Anne ringing in my ears because a lot of the things I talk about here may seem redundant, but like I find that it's necessary for me to bring in old concepts that are solidified in order to like paint this larger picture finally. Let's say you go to the Costco, you buy access to Costco with a membership card. Then you buy some products and they give you a receipt. Kind of both of those are representative of what a tag could do. But the difference is the membership card, you pay for until you're not paying for it, and then they take it away from you. If you buy some product, they give you a receipt, which is kind of like a tag. And even if you return the product, you still keep the receipt, even though it has a line through it, to memorialize that you did it before. So what I like to say is this tag is a type of control tag, and these are receipt tags. These are tags that somebody will keep forever. This is a tag that will be given and taken away as a matter of giving access. And so when we think about like paid membership plugins versus what we have here, we know now that we can use WooCommerce that has a multitude of other benefits for organizing, onboarding, and a unified dashboard, for simplifying lost passwords, for so many things. And it can also take money. But whether or not WooCommerce takes the money, whether or not we use a form for entry, giving tags is what we're going to use for controlling what people can access or not, as well as for memorializing what things they might have belonged to in the past. Like, for example, I used to go to grammar school, I'm told. I have pictures of it, of course. I don't go there now. If they sent out an email that said, hey, Grove School class of, I don't know, 1972 or something like that, 1974, I technically would be on the list. But if they said, hey, Grove School, current 2nd grade class, that's a different set of kids. That's not a 58-year-old. I'd probably be a grandfather for one of those kids at this point. So the idea is we want to have the ability to use tags for different purposes, and they're not necessarily all the same thing. They're very subtle. And finally, as I'll show you, once somebody's in, these can also be used for further display or not display of different things. For example, which products are offered in a sales funnel, which pages are visible, which design things are done, whether they're added to a community space or not. So if you're following me, we can give and take away tags from a variety of means, free or otherwise. Once they've got them in a particular list, we can segment. But now, depending on what they've got, we can do a multitude of cool stuff. And we've talked about this before, but you have like 3 ways that you can onboard somebody to a site. You can use the default WordPress registration, which is really not in any way, shape, or form a good idea because it's just too rough around the edges. You can use a free form with Fluent Forms that will instantly register, log somebody in, and take them wherever you want. You can use WooCommerce, free or paid, to have somebody purchase for free or a paid amount, subscription amount, a product. And then I suppose finally, you can also just use pure automation. It is possible programmatically with WP Fusion that you can have a link from an external source that will also use a webhook to generate a user account and profile, and it could send a person the information that they need. I like to recommend in almost every case, use WooCommerce as a product, even if it's free, because that just unifies the whole experience. However, there are some times when using Fluent Forms or Fluent Community is a useful tool as well, because it allows you to collect some extra data and it feels less like a checkout. So I'm not going to repeat those, but let's just say if we wanted people to gain access to stuff like a course or a part of the community, we're going to want to ultimately give them a tag to know that they can access it. And we want them to get registered and logged in through one of these means. And so let's say if we looked over here for products, we can use a paid or a free product as just the tool for registering. So here's the community membership plugin, product that I had left over from a previous office hours. And I had customized this, by the way, using the tools of launch flows so that I can just literally make this super cool design as quickly as copy and paste. But let's just ditch all of this and start over. If we just started with a pure WooCommerce product, let's say a subscription to get into the site was $97 a month. Launch flows allows us to say, where does somebody go when they want to buy it? And where do they go afterwards? The thank you page is just a really simple way to memorialize, here's what you bought, and by the way, click on something now to go to it. You could just as easily send them to the My Account area, or we could send them right into the community, which is maybe what we would do here. So in this case, since I have a page at community, I can just go ahead and choose that. Or I could take them, like I was saying, to let's take a look here. Let's do, if I did My Account, right? If I wanted to send them into My Account, it would be 2 words, My Account. Okay. I could also take them, I think this is the portal. Yeah, My Portal. Whichever way you do it. I'm going to stick right now with a thank you page just because I think that gives people recognition that they're done with buying something and checking out. You can clean up the sales page to get rid of a lot of the fluff. And then with WP Fusion, this is the cool thing. We've talked about this before. If it's a subscription product, I'm going to give them 2 types of tags, right? So let's choose them. One of them is I subscribed, because this is a subscription product. And then the second is can access community. Now, using WP Fusion, I'm going to use this one option here called remove tags to remove both of those tags if they cancel. But what I do in this box is I give them back the receipt. So in the future, I know, yes, you can't access it now, but you previously had paid for a subscription. So I give them back the subscription tag. And if they expired, I give them back the subscription tag. So they can't access anymore. They can't go to the left of Costco, but they can always come back to the desk and say, I used to belong here. Or maybe I just want to reach out to them because of that and an automation. And I can also collect other data, of course, that can be mapped to a field. But this by itself, just this simple thing of using the tags in this method allows me, along with a purchase transaction, to sell access and then enroll them automatically in whatever I need them to do. Let's talk about that. There have been many updates in the last couple weeks, both WP Fusion as well as Fluent Community, that allow us to control access enrollment without the need to do an automation. WP Fusion just released an update, which I think is awesome. If we go right here, this allows us to use the same interface that we've been doing all the time. First of all, they have global portal control with a tag. This is something that you can do regardless of which space somebody subscribes to. So remember, I've spoken about this Matryoshka doll, the doll and a doll and a doll and a doll, right? By the way, for those who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Matryoshka doll. I think I'm spelling it, but there we go. Matryoshka. Okay, it's these things. It's like, a stacking doll. Anybody who's got Eastern European family members, like the little baby in the so you only see the big mommy, but when you open it up, the little baby. Okay, if you think of it like a Matryoshka doll, the outer shell of your community portal could be publicly visible. That's what I do most of the time, because that way I can control individual spaces and individual stuff inside of each space. But you may decide that you want a community that no public can see, in which case that is where you would use the tag at the global level on the outer shell of the Matryoshka doll to make sure nobody sees in there unless they've got the tag. Okay. And you can use this cool redirection where what would you do? I would probably send them to, you guessed it, like community membership. So there's a product that we just created. I would send them to that product page to go buy if they otherwise didn't have the tag, right? Pretty super easy when you think about it. Let's, however, suggest that what if we didn't control access and we left the outer shell clear, like a baby with like a mommy with a window in her belly to see the babies? Okay. Here we can control access to either spaces or courses. And the course does not mean LearnDash. That's another method that we can use in the products. But this means courses inside a Fluent community, which are really kind of handy. I don't use them that often, but they're handy little organizational tools for things that require more formatting than you can do in the activity streams, but not necessarily that you need all the control and the power of LearnDash. So here we have two ways of using tags. Number one, as a receipt mechanism. So let's say we use some other method to apply or add Spence or anybody to a space. I've created a space here called paid membership space. By the way, when you make new spaces, all of them will appear here. When you make new courses in community plugin, they'll all appear here. So for this particular space, if I added somebody through another means, maybe like last week I showed you, maybe it's because I dragged them on a Kanban board, or maybe it's just because they got in through another mechanism. I can give them the tag to memorialize that they've joined the space. So let's make a fourth tag. We're going to go here to tags, and let's make one that said like a receipt, but for what was actually done. Remember, action, subject. So joined, and we'll call this paid space. At one time, they joined this space. This is just a receipt to acknowledge anybody who's previously had this access or control. Notice I broke my rule here because I did capitals, right? So what I would do typically is joined paid space. I would do something where you keep consistent with the way you do your labels. It doesn't matter if they're all underscore or if they have camel case or if they have connectors. Just do them all the same so that somebody later comes along and they can see like, oh, this is how you do the formatting. Okay. So if I have joined paid space, when I go back over here, I'm going to need to refresh this. Let's just save this and refresh the page. I can now use that as a way to just memorialize they got in somehow. It wasn't from buying the product, but at least I know they had joined it at one time. Here is a similar option to what I just showed you for subscription. This will remove any of these tags when they leave the space. That necessarily implies that you need to use something to give back a tag if this option is used. Unfortunately, there's not such an option in line, so you'd have to do it with an automation. But this would remove this join paid space in the event that they ever checked out of the space. And then finally, link with tag. This is the unified way, if you wanted, instead of selling a product, where if you simply gave somebody a tag in the Fluent CRM or through another means like the user profile, that this would enroll them or add them to that space. And similarly, if the tag is removed, it will be removed. Now, one of the things I'm not sure about, I'm going to read his directions. I think, I'm not sure. I got to ask Jack now. No, it's still true when they leave the space. Okay. So this tag, when they join the space, will stay with them. This is what will enroll them. If for any reason they leave, then I presume it's going to take both tags with them. But so in this case, if you gave them the tag of Can Access Community, that would give them both the ability to see the stuff, a memorial that they can be segmented on, and it would be something that essentially would do what's necessary to make sure that all the controls that are set up inside a Fluent community work. All right, let's pause. Jackson has a good question. How do you send users from other sites into the one list? Okay, let's talk about that. I actually have that live myself. So for those of you who have been getting my emails, thank you. I use 1WDTV, a famous domain that nobody can see, say, spell, or remember, which is why I don't like using it. Back in the day, I was involved with Dinas Graveris at firstwebdesigner.com, and we came up with this together as a joint venture. and I ran it. And 1WD.TV is a tongue twister, but as short as it is, I always had to spell it because people would say ONE, or they would say, try to spell out W. The TV is annoying and expensive, but it's really short. So now what I use it with is like Click Whale, as I'm going to talk about in a second, to make my own really awesome things for short purposes. Like 1WDTV, here's all my archives. Here's all my newsletter archives. Have I helped? Is a standalone little cutie, but because of the fact it's so short, 1WD.TV, I really get like a link shortener effect. I also use it as my CRM hub. So inside of 1WDTV, I've connected about 7 or 8 other properties that I own. And in so doing, I have set it up so that it actually uses the API capability. Let me show you what that looks like. If we go into the Fluent CRM setup of WP Fusion here, when you do your original setup, see where you can't really see it. It says Fluent CRM this site. I could disconnect this. That's fine, but I'll do it this way so I don't lose the connection. And you type Fluent CRM. There'll be 2 choices: Fluent CRM this site, or Fluent CRM API. When you choose API, what's neat about that is that then you go to any other site and you add WP Fusion. And in so doing, you can connect to the remote CRM. I will show you in WP Launch Kit, because I don't have anything that I need to hide from you on the back end. And if I go to WP Fusion, we can see what I've done here. In the setup, you can sort of see it. It says Fluent CRM REST API. And then I put the URL of the hub, which is in my case 1WDTV. That's 1, the number 1. And then I click the button Authorize with Fluent CRM, and boom, it's connected. Now, what this does is it essentially synchronizes all the behavior that WP Fusion brings to the table with that remote CRM. And so now I've got all the same things as if it was connected locally, but it's just easy. And for example, if you were to refresh the tags and fields, yada, 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 you can see all of the things that would be available for use in the form of tags, even though I'm technically not on the site that has the CRM. The CRM is over on 1WDTV. I'm right now on WP Launch Kit. So here, for some reason, I had not done this, but it still works. The main list, if they join here, I could assign any of these tags if somebody does stuff. I don't use it for that purpose here. This is just a public-facing site, but this is how easy it is. And then you just say, save changes, and you're done. Another benefit of that is financially. You own and control the hub. Now I'm going to give you real talk with Spence. I've been talking with one of the other colleagues I have, Jim, who is also a member here and a very smart dude. And we have a lot in common. But one of the things we talked about is that I envision that I'm going to take a subset of what's available in the kit, and I'm going to be offering it as a tool for $20 a month. I'll explain this here now. For 3 key purposes for somebody maybe like you, Jackson, who just wants, what if I could use Fluent CRM as my hub for myself or my clients and do a couple other cool things in the process? Number 1, besides it being a marketing engine and automation engine, 2, what if it was a media hub, not for videos, but for all of my static images, PDFs, files, and other stuff that I want to use across 7, 8, 9, 10 other sites? But what a pain in the ass it is, unless, what if I was using that hub to have something super cool? Like if you look inside of the normal media library, by itself, it's actually pretty damn useful out of the box, but you can add a plugin like Filebird or File Media Manager to turn this in a super duper awesome engine with folders and subfolders and all kinds of things. What if you own that one site and for $20 a month, it was your marketing hub, your email marketing engine. It managed all of the media that you can share remotely to all of your sites, your client sites. And then finally, what if it was also for link shortening and management? So let me show you real quick. that click whale, which is just a little cutie, as my mom would say. And it allows me to do things that are really super awesome. Now, I promised you I was going to do a trick today. One of the things I set up for one of my clients was a marketing automation email that went out to people who had bought a certain product. And I wanted to track if they used a traditional email link. And now, what does that mean? Those of you who have been around a while know, if you make a URL and it says mail to, let me go to a text editor here. Hold on. Text editor online. So I can make this super huge. Okay. Let's make that even bigger. Can I make it bigger? Let's do a better text editor so it's bigger. I'm sure I'm missing something that's probably much cooler and easier, but let me just see if I can get something. Good enough. Okay. If I use a link like mail to Spencer at spencerforeman.com, I'm sure this has got to have a Zoom thing in it, for goodness sake. Here we go. Right in front of my eyes. Okay. All right. If I say mail to Spencer at Spencer Foreman, this will trigger, and it's not nail to, it's mail to. Here, mail to. That will trigger the native email client for anybody's phone or their desk. I like that. I actually use that at WP LaunchFi. Why? Because guess what happens with that? No spam. Why? Because the bots are not going out looking for emails anymore. They're going out and looking for forms. So when you go to my contact form over here and you click on this, notice mail to help, it's going to ask me, I don't think it shows you, it's asking me to open my email client if I'm using one. Okay. The problem with that was that this by itself doesn't naturally work out of the box when you're trying to track links using Fluent CRM. So we needed a little magic trick. Here's the magic trick. If I were to, let's say, I want you to say mail to this email address. I love using click whale to shorten it into a traditionally formatted link, which I can then use with the dynamic links capability of Fluent CRM inside of a marketing automation email. Watch what I mean. So first of all, I'm going to go over here to, let me clean up a couple things. Let's make a new link. And I'm going to use the target URL as this. And I'm just going to see, I think 301 is fine. We don't need to worry about no follow or anything else. And here's what's interesting. We've got a slug here that we can choose into something else. We can say mail me. It doesn't matter. And this is email short link for, I don't know, campaign XYZ. So you can have a different one if you need. By the way, those of you who are asking me, you can also do something cool adding a subject line in. So you could do, for example, and subject equals, and then you can do quote or not. Hey, Spence, I have a question. If you add that in, that will be the subject line in the email when the client is opened. So super cool, because this complexity is just like, it's a lot of stuff. By putting that into this short link generator, you can add that right here as a target URL and you're good to go. Now, if we save this, we now have a link that will function, but will look and act like a much shorter link. So let's look at what this link looks like. Instead of all these words and blah, 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 it looks like this, right? And I'm not sure why this is bumping out, but there you go. This is giving me a format that I can use. Now, this is awesome because here's what I do with this. Now, inside of the Fluent CRM, I want to create an email one-timer campaign that has a link that says, click here to email me. And I want to know if somebody clicked it. Okay, so let's go to Fluent CRM. By the way, Anne, if you're here, this is for you. This is all new stuff. I promise to sprinkle in some cool stuff. We want to go over to settings, and we want to use the smart links capability of Fluent CRM. And here in the smart link, we're going to call it link to private email Spence about XYZ campaign. Okay, that's just an internal note. Place that short link with your own private link shortener in there. And now, guess what you can do? You can apply a tag when clicked. Let's make a tag that says, clicked link in XYZ email, or something as short as possible where it's the action and the subject of the action. Why? Now I'll be able to segment anybody who specifically clicked that link in my email. Wait for it. I could, if I want, also allow somebody to auto log into the site if that was relevant. I can make a note for myself of what this does. This tracks if someone clicks this specific link in the email to send me a regular email versus using a form or something else that feels impersonal and is subject to spam bots. Because let's bring it back home. That spam bot is not going to get that email. That spam bot will not have a form that is sitting in public that it can discover and hassle you with. This magic link, or sorry, smart link, is now what I can use when I create a new email template or when I create a campaign. So for example, whether it's one time or not, I'm going to go over here. Let's just do a template. I'm going to create an email template that I can use as the basis for anything else. And I'm going to say email template with smart link email opener. Okay. And I could say, hey, and I'm going to come back to this. Now let's do the email because I'm going to come back to the second line. This is where the magic comes in. I can use, you're welcome, Anne. Something here for everybody. I can use this as just the link on any word. So I could say, blah, 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 blah. Please click here to email me. Blah, 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 blah. Now, one way of doing this is just to highlight, please email me, click on the link, paste in that smart link. Ta-da, maybe bolden it. Now you've got something that if they click on this, this will send them where you want them to go, which is to open their email client. The subject line will be pre-filled. And when and if they send it, hello, Sifso. Siffiso. I like your name. It's very cool. If they do that, you will now have somebody, when they click on it, who gets the tag. We'll try this out in a second because I believe it should be operational. Then I can go back to the subject and I go, let's go to the template tags here and get their first name so I can go, hey, whatever. It's Spence. Email me. And I could do the same thing here, right? So instead of start writing here, I would do like you see me send you. I go, hey, contact first name. It's Spence. Okay. If we save and use this template, we can actually test it, which is awesome. So let's create a template. And it's not going to go out live because I just showed you I turned off my Fluent SMTP, and it's irrelevant because trust me, it will. But we could track it and catch it. But more importantly, let's just see what happens. I'm right now logged in as me. I don't know if I have a contact profile because I'm the admin. So one of the things I could do is let's set this up to make sure I have a profile. And typically you can do that by going, by the way, to settings and make sure under settings general that you as the admin are included into this, right? So I think it's already set up. So I must have just deleted myself. So let me just add myself back in. No big deal. I'm going to add myself back in so that we can track Spence, right? So Mr. Spencer Foreman. And I want to make sure too that I'm not sure if it's help at WP Launchify. Let's see. Because I think this might be set up as like a placeholder. Let's find out. So it's actually Spencer Foreman. and I'm gonna be on the main list, and I don't have any tags right now, right? Let me double check. Yes, help at WP Launchify. So let's go to this email and let's see, since I don't have a tag yet, when we test this email, what happens, right? So let's do a test email here. No, let's do a different way. Let's create an email where I can just test this in line like a campaign, right? So if I do campaign, I'm going to use this template in my campaign, right? Example campaign. And that way I can inline try to test the email, right? So here I'm going to import that template that I just created. So easy. Now, when I save it, I can do in the next step a test, which is what's going to give me the ability to see what happens. So if I do this thing here, let's do it a different way. Let's do it to a Mailinator account. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's see. Hold on. Test. Otherwise, I got to open up my email client. Test at mailinator.com. This may or may not send out to it. If not, we'll use the email trap here, which is probably good anyway. If I go to settings, Fluent SMTP, like I started earlier, I will have an email log, but I also need to set up, like, what's the default, whatever I'm going to use. So for this, what I could just do, let's just do other here. I was doing this before and then I stopped, so I'll just do it like this. 465. And we'll do, let's do my Help at Lab Secrets, right? So help@labsecrets.com. And we'll say for Spencer as the name from Spence. Okay, and I think this is probably going to be okay. I think, okay, it's not going to show you what I'm typing. Good. Okay, so I'm one of those geeky guys that knows his Google password. Okay, here I'm going to actually allow that to go out, but I could also just disable sending and use the trap, which would work as well. Oh, fantastic! I'm nice to meet you, and I'm glad I got it pronounced correctly. So, yes, good question. There's a couple questions here. I'm going to come back to these guys in a second because there's definitely something about this. I am not using other links. This is an important part. So I'm going to come back to this point because it is actually very, very useful. Hold on one second. So let's do two things. Let's see if this will send out to my Mailinator tests. So if I go back over here, and I'm going to see if this now can send out. We'll find out. I'm going to open up Mailinator, which is a tool that I used to use to, I don't want to give you anything. Did I say test at Mailinator? I think I did. And hopefully it goes out here. And it came through. Okay. So here's the thing. Let's see what happens, because remember, this is specifically coded to the person it was sent to. If I click this, this should use it. You can't see it. It's opening up on my screen, my mail program. This should add a tag here, if it worked, for what I asked it to do. And it worked. I love it when plan comes together on a Friday. So what I've done there is I've used ClickWhale along with a variety of other things that I use for. I can also use this, for example, I like using it, as I showed you, for have I helped? Now, what that could be done for is, like, if you're in Fluent CRM or Fluent Forms and you've got a form, another trick that I use this for is, let's say, subscription form or contact demo. One of the settings options on this is to use the landing page, right? Which is super awesome. I think I have to turn on in this one. I have to turn on Pro maybe. Let me see if I have the plugin on. Hold on. So this is included in the kit, but we're just going to turn on Fluent Forms Pro. Pro add-on. That's why it's not there. And that enables this landing page feature, which I really like. It's not like I'm going to use it everywhere, but instead of embedding something in a page, you kind of get the benefit here of like, hey man, this could be just like one-off and I can customize it to be anything I want, a Black Friday sale or, whatever. So if I go back over here to Fluent Forms, and let's look at that landing page. This is another reason where ClickWhale becomes super handy, in my opinion, because now if I have a custom domain and I go to settings, I go to landing page, I turn on the landing page, but see, they don't, as far as I understand, they don't have a way to customize this. So this is what it'll look like, which is not the worst, but it's going to have some weird name and number after it, like landing page ID number 1234. What if instead, if I just copied that link and I go over to my Clicky Whaley and I just do the same thing. I say, let's make a new short link, right? So the target URL is that landing page 1. And instead I use the slug of, email me. And I go, form to get XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now what I've done is essentially created something which is a very short link if you've got a cool domain for that, or branded, and it doesn't necessarily give them some weird parameters in it, which to me, that's the important part. So this is what that what that link would look like, and imagine if instead of this, it was like I have, if it's 1wd.tv, you don't need Clickly or Bitly or any of those things. Just get yourself some crazy, really short URL, or at least your brand, right? So even if it was this, spencerforeman.com/email me is pretty cool if that was to, launch a form, right? So if I put that in, it resolves, the form shows up. Ta-da, I can customize this at will. All right, let's talk about some of these questions. These are good. Using any external links other than our main domain in the Fluent CRM emails will increase the spam score. So using shortener isn't the best option for email. Hiding links might be scanned too. But I am not doing that. That is a good point. You are 100% correct. I am not doing that. I am not using an external link for Fluent CRM emails. I am using it to track a click. There is nothing nowhere that I'm aware of, and I am open to the idea that I got this wrong. I am using it merely to know inside of an email if somebody has clicked on it. I am not using it for transmitting, and I'm not using it for marketing. So to that extent, I am aware of nothing that is going to cause a problem if somebody clicks an internal link. What this is doing is allowing me to get around one of the cool product limitations. If I'm using the Fluent CRM Smart Links, and maybe actually, hold on. I'm going to talk about webhooks in a second, but if you're using the Smart Links capability, which I think is really awesome, the problem is the Smart Links doesn't have the ability as an option to do a mail to. It doesn't have the ability to track if I want to let people use a traditional email client that is triggered when you have that prefix of mail to. So total high five, Lishiki. Great point, but not what I'm doing. I appreciate what you're saying. I do not understand what that means. So all that I'm accomplishing here, please clarify if you mean, all I'm accomplishing here is the ability to give somebody a traditional mail to format link, which will trigger a local email client. And the reason that that's relevant to me, number one, it feels like a more personal thing when you say, hey, click here and email me, and it opens up their favorite email client, versus sending somebody to a form where it's clearly like everybody's looking at that form. And number two is that it does avoid, in my experience, all of the bots that are otherwise going to find those forms and whatever. And I think there's a product option that might be added to the Smart Links that would allow detach tags and lists. Right. So like, I don't see any option in here that allows them to use native email client. That would be super cool if inside the email campaign builder, they had an option here. And trust me, I looked for it where it was like, add the short codes or whatever. Nothing in here allowed me to do a native click and track a mail to link, or even click a regular link. Now, I do want to bring something else out. There might be something that they've done new, by the way. Admin email, site URL. Yeah, I just don't see it. There's this, which is, I'm not sure. I got to always keep up random string with a prefix. I don't know what the heck that does. In any event, there's an alternative way of accomplishing this if you use WP Fusion. But the problem with that is it doesn't necessarily work if the person isn't logged in. WP Fusion allows us to use a syntax that any link we click on can be tracked. So WP Fusion link tracking. And I use this quite a bit, but this only really is effective or guaranteed to work if it's used in the site on a page or something else where the person is likely logged in. Because otherwise, the application of data tags would just be going to nowhere because we don't know who the person is if they're just randomly clicking it. It is possible to work that out where in an email that had specific parameters, we knew it was who that person is. But I haven't found that to be a use case that's reliable. I'm relying on what Fluent CRM is doing by sending the emails. All right, you've got to follow up here. Let's see. I do not agree with that premise, but I'm open to the idea of being proven wrong. Because in practice, when you're sending out a smart link, okay, there's nothing different here between using my domain and the smart link and using the domain in my clicky, for example. I mean, I love these debates because this is maybe, I don't want to bore everyone else to tears, but watch. If I was using the native smart links inside of Fluent, okay, so go back over here to settings. I don't know why it's not showing here, but this is their quirky menu thing. If I was to create the native smart URL, let's look at it together. Okay, I'm being objective because I love that you actually have some really interesting point here. I'm not trying to say you're off. I'm saying I don't agree that your premise is factually correct. Look at what the URL is. It's the same goddamn URL as I'm going to be using, whether the thing coming after is this or the thing coming after it is that. That's it. So what I'm saying is when I actually create the email, instead of trying to put in a weird link like this, which I don't know what the scoring would be, nor do I care. This is just going to be a beautiful, simple inline link, but it doesn't matter as far as scoring because the link is the same. It's the prefix of my site either way. So again, I love this conversation. Tell me if this helps to clarify, but I don't know how it's of any relevance anyway, because here's the end result that I know about. With tens of thousands of clients who are doing stuff, if you're using an SMTP service that is a reliable partner, like a SendGrid, like a Google, like a Gmail apps, and if in fact it is coming from inside of the, let's say the details for the non-geeks here, of the email header, if it's coming from the source that it's claimed to be, and you've got the other things set up for security, you know, the DKIM and the SPIF and all the other things, it's going through regardless of whether you say this or that. It's just, that's just factually the way it is. I'm going to respectfully say I love the conversation, but I have found in practice that this is not how it works. So I mean, what's interesting about this, this is fun because, like, first of all, I love that we're actually having these conversations. And by the way, I appreciate this feedback too about webhooks. I love these conversations because this is the kind of place I wanted to be in at this stage a year later, where now we're actually building cool stuff and doing it. I love you too. We're doing it like for real. Because what's happening is now we've got the tools to debate, like what's the best way to use the tools instead of which tools to use. But I can also bring 20 years experience, tens of thousands of clients and practical things. This reminds me of when I was arguing with a well-known guy, Rand Fishkin, who used to run SEO Moz. He was the number one source. And we were debating one day on a WP Tonic show, and I was saying, SEO is bullshit. It's a pay-for-play. They've been lying to us. I mean, all this stuff. And I was proven correct. And Rand has now gone on to do another huge business that acknowledges all that bullshit and the hoops they made us jump through were bullshit. Because the real world as it exists, I go off of practical evidence. And the practical evidence is if you're using an SMTP delivery service that's reliable and you don't have a history of bad practices, all this bullshit you're talking about is not bullshit, but it's just bullshit like it doesn't matter anymore. It does not matter anymore. And nobody, in my opinion, should be worrying about that when they could be worrying about more how to get human beings to buy stuff. But I love that we're debating it. And I love you too. Thank you for that. Okay, Jackson, I appreciate that. Here's how you do. You can right now use just the base stuff that I'm offering. This is an example of how you guys can hopefully take what I'm offering and sell it downstream. Okay, so if we were to go back here, WP Launchify pricing. This is my traditional sales model, but I'm also like moving into this a la carte. All you need is the fastest hosting with Rocket, $20 a month. Now, I talked about this last week. Rocket.net is one of 600 hosts, but of all of the hosts, there's a dozen or maybe half a dozen that are doing things correctly, and the rest are selling you yesterday's stuff at inflated prices. WP Engine, with all the other drama aside, worst case example, $150 for putting you in a bus with a bunch of kids and making you sit on a cached seat. The closest best service would be Cloudways, but for the same thing that retail, you get a Rocket for $30 a month. You would pay $54 or more at Cloudways, and you would not have personal relations with this team out of Jupiter, Florida that you literally, here, there's Yao, that you literally would get to know first person, or I will on your behalf. Now, I have a relationship with Ben and Jeff and Chad and the team here. I have the agency plan. So instead of $30 a month for the same host, I get that at $10 a month. You can either buy your own block of 10 and it'll cost you 10 a month, or just ride on the Spence train and get every benefit, including a piece of Spence, for $20 a month. Now, you combine that with either what I've shown you for free or use the launch kit. And now we've got the tools in place, which, by the way, Jackson, round tripping it. I am taking the same thing that I'm using for today's example, but we're going to be putting it together with a couple curated tools and some other things like baking a different recipe so that it can replicate the exact hub that I use for myself. And the things that I'm trying to say that are going to be super cool about it would be, let me just actually show you an example. If we went ahead and added any of these media managers, there's several of them, right? We can leverage on your hub the ability to share the URLs. Let me show you one quick example. I know we're going long today, but I feel like really energized. So let's add a new plugin. There are several of these, and I want to make sure I pick the one that's the best. But if we do media file manager, there's a few that will come up. Some are paid elsewhere. I'm going to figure out which one to put in. FileBird is very low-key. Media Library Assistant, low-key. Let's just put in FileBird, and I'll show you an example of what I mean. If using FileBird, you can very easily have a fully optimized global CDN hub for transactional engine, your marketing emails, your media, your short links. Like, it's CDN optimized with an unlimited capability, and you can do it for all your sites. Like, hello, why would you go off and do anything privately? Because now anytime you want to add media for any of your stuff, put it in one place and organize it like this. And now all of a sudden you'll be able to find it and manage it, right? So I don't have the pro one of this in. It doesn't really make much difference. But you can set this up and configure the theme and all the other, you know, what does it manage and so forth. But in general, you go to the media library. Now look what I've got. I've got all these cool folders. So one way of doing this would be like by website, right? SpencerForeman.com or Spencer Foreman. Okay. Now, what might I do in the future? Let's pretend I go to SpencerForeman.com. Oh, I've got this great background image, right? That I would love to use again and again. Okay. I could go into the site to get this, but what I'll do here is just to shortcut this is that I'll go in and I'll try to grab that image from here. Just saving. Let's see if I'm saving any time at all. I have a really cool tool here that I use. I think it's this one. Show me the styles. Why do I love this tool? Check this baby out. This free plugin or extension allows me to see the colors and all of the assets on the page. So fast and simple, okay? So I can scroll through and see which images or things that I want to reuse. Let's say, for example, instead of the background, I'll make it easy. Let's say I want to use this custom little Filebird thing, right? Okay. If I copy first of all, let's download the image. Let's save it. And I'll put it on my desktop. Let's put it in my media library that's on this $20 hub instead, okay? So now I've got a new folder, Spencer Foreman, and I'm going to add a new file in, and I can either drop it or just select it, just like I would normally. But now what's happening is this is on my central hub, okay, for $20, for God's sake. Okay, put it in here. Here's where the magic comes in. On all your client sites, if you're using LaunchKit, you can use remote URLs, and they're CDN optimized. So just, you have this URL here, and now if I'm building something on another site, right now I just go to my hub and get the URL. In the future, I'm planning on building a connector, so you'll be able to select from a remote site any files inside of this site. I mean, really stupid simple. But if I go over here, let's say I was making a new page, I can use that as the featured image. I can use that as like the content, and it's already CDN hosted and optimized. So I don't have to worry like where it's located, because it's being hosted on a CDN optimized website through Rocket. Get it? Right? So an image on a page, and I go over here and I'll put an image block, let's say using Cadence. Here's the magic. Insert from URL is one way of doing it. I paste in that remote URL, done. Another way of doing it is I can use it in this here, editing the image, right? So I can select the image from here, do the same thing. That will be the remote connector. Like that will be like, it'll pop up your hub instead of the, okay. Another way of doing it would be you can do it from inside of the launch kit. I've got an option that allows you to use remote images as the source file, which is really super cool. And I don't know if I turned it on here, so let me just show you. If I go to plugins, install plugins. Okay, so, and the Fluent CRM bit means that you could connect any of these sites to that host, which can act as your Fluent CRM hub. So instead of installing Fluent CRM in each of your sites, you install it on that same $20 server. Done. You could do WooCommerce, Fluent CRM, the Media Manager, the Clicky. That is now replacing your kit.com. That's replacing your HubSpot. That's replacing whatever, but not just for one site that you're doing a bunch of stuff on. It could act as the hub across your site or your client sites as a tremendous value that you own and control, right? So I have here, this is the last thing I'll show, images, featured image with URL. If we use that plugin, we can even go one step further, because now, let's say on this page, I can use that as my remote featured image, which is awesome, because then I'm not cluttering up this particular library with a bunch of junk. So here now I've got, let me turn off your name. Here now in the bottom right, featured image with URL, paste that in, that now becomes a featured image of the post. Okay. Love the energy today. Love the questions today. Love the debate today. Everybody, I am very grateful for you being here. I'm very grateful for your, I love your spunky attitudes and information. This is awesome. And I think there's one last thing I want to announce. No, the way it works, by the way, Jackson, is you have Fluent CRM on the hub, and then on the remote sites, you only need WP Fusion, which again, it's part of the kit. So if you get WP Fusion through me, you're, thank you, by the way, you're going to get that on all sites. So hub has Fluent CRM and WP Fusion. WP Fusion's on the remote site. It does the connectivity. However, I want to tell you, if you need, let's say, Fluent CRM and WooCommerce on another site, I've been testing it, and it actually can live together in harmony, but you just have to be very careful about what you're using for what purpose. So for example, I have one client site where I have WP Fusion and Fluent, even though technically it's connected to the hub, because what I want is inside of the contacts database, I want to go into a contact and see what they just bought locally. Lots of cool tricks. But the takeaway, hopefully, for all of you guys is, I got a couple other questions. The takeaway is that I'm so like excited about, this is like a box, which you will hopefully see with the branding, the Minute Launch Kit that I've been working on for, well, 20 years, plus or minus a year or two, that we finally get for a price that starts $20 up to $97 a month. Everything in the world for yourself and unlimited clients. Plus, you can also get hands-on help, an incredible amount of cool stuff that was built and bought without having to spend extra money. And now we got this like creative energy that I was going to share with you guys. I am begrudgingly trying to decide where to put the community that I'm building again, because I was debating whether to put it on this extra site here, which is WP Launch Club, where I currently had been using it for stuff, but I'm really debating not putting it there. I'm thinking I'm going to put it instead. I'm going to probably put it over into WP Launchify. But the point is, having the energy of all this kind of stuff, this is awesome, because in addition to this and all the other things I talk about publicly, I've got like a trillion things that I do daily that I can share in the community for those of you who are either in the free one or in the Spence list one. And I think that's like going to be mind-blown way to expand. Finally, I'm going to answer those questions, but I did some email yesterday. Hopefully you guys got. I think this is going to be wild. If you go to minutelaunch.com/agent, you can play with it today. It's live. It's Spence, and I have a post about this. So to explain, this is not to replace me in a free call or a live call. That's never going to happen. This is like, let's say I'm on specific documentation or community, and you want to ask anything about the stuff and where else to go, as compared with the current way of doing things, which is like go by ingredient or go by a recipe. And in doing so, instead of just being limited to like, well, click and view and click and view and click and view, what if you could really talk? Now, one of the benefits of using my setup is I think I had my soundboard fixed for this, but I'm not sure. But if you were to go to this page, you can actually talk to me, the AI me. Hey, Spence. You probably can't hear it because I'm thinking my mixer isn't working on here today. But it's hey, Spence, tell me about how to start a membership community. Let's see if it does. Hey, Spence, how do I start a member community? Are you listening to me? I think it's not happy because I'm using the screen recorder. But go over there and play with it. Ask it questions about our pricing, about the products. I think this is going to be super cool. And this combined with these other stuff we talked about, wow. Okay. I answered that question. Last question. How can you sell membership to Fluent community using the available Fluent products? Well, I'm going to tell you one last thing to take away. Do not use the native Stripe integration. Instead, as I've shown many, many times, and it's in lots of my other documentation, we're going to sell it using the product of WooCommerce. Why? Because if we do it this way, we have unified one setup that can handle everything. And in doing so, we can control the marketing automation, the tags, the follow-up. Fluent does an amazing job, but if you sell it directly or you sell it with a Stripe integration, it's like having a separate cash register for managing some people's money versus the main cash register that you do for all people's money. And you do not want to do that when you already have this built-in capability. So this product, if you follow some of my other documentation, or just to quickly show you, this product of community membership applies the necessary tags that I showed you at the beginning of today's session that will enroll somebody into whichever space or the community. So remember, we could have done this in the past with the extra automation. We don't need to now. We just said to WP Fusion, give these two tags when they subscribe. Can access community, subscribe to the community. And if they stop paying, take them away, but give them back the receipt. Then we went into the WP Fusion settings. Maybe you weren't here yet because I saw you came in a little later. And in WP Fusion, inside of Fluent Community, WP Fusion, we said, if they get the tag of Can Access Community, automatically enroll them. And by the way, if they ever leave, remove them. That's it. That's one of 3 or 4 ways of doing it in addition to automations. You can also control that in the Fluent community itself using their native tool, but I don't do that. I have a rule. I treat Fluent CRM as if it was an outside CRM, and I use WP Fusion for all the connectivity. That way, all of the tools have the same methods, the same standards, the same like labeling. And I'm not wondering, oh, did I use Fluent for that or WP Fusion for that? So here, if you go in their advanced integrations, so I think go over here, go to access management. You will enable access management with Fluent, and they give you the same kind of idea, but it's not as flexible, if you ask me. You can pick a tag, and you can sync this with their space access. So, for example, if somebody is paid and got a tag or got a tag some other way, that will enroll them into the space. If they leave, it'll take the tag away. Pretty cool. Okay, I like using WP Fusion for this, and I use Fluent CRM just as a CRM. 90 minutes, it's a new record. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but I'm really excited about what's happening. So whether you're turned on by just the idea of the kit and all the cool stuff there, you want to escape and break free from the drama and the complexity and the limitations of the old-fashioned WordPress, we've got everything you need here as a system that's starting at $20 a month. But realistically, I want you in there at 47 or 97. You can do for yourself and unlimited clients everything you need, but you have the promise of ownership and control. You have none of the shenanigans of billionaire tech elites deciding one day to go rampant on destroying you or your hard-won efforts. By the way, those of you who keep asking me about it, this is like deja vu, because back in 2006, the reason I came to WordPress and Mr. Mullenweg and the rest of it was because of how bad the billionaires, or at the time millionaires, like Mark Andreessen and the Facebook, and wasn't even there yet, but like Ning community acted when it came to things that they didn't like. They just took down 12,500 social networking communities because myself and another guy were doing just what I'm doing now with their permission. But one day they changed. Well, guess what? We're in a new world. We all have democratized tools, AI robots of our own. We just have to do what's necessary to make our own stuff. And since I can be your yellow vest IKEA guy at a price that's less than buying the stuff from me a la carte, plus the support, I mean, what's there to say no to? It's a money back guarantee. You can join over at wplaunchify.com. And I hope you do. You can pick a la carte. So if you go to pricing, I'm going to leave this up only for a little while longer. I'm going to integrate these pre-made bundles into the a la carte. You could just go ahead and do monthly or annual for the software. You can do the hosting for one site or get an agency account if you want, because I offer a link and you click on this. And you can also get email support from me. You could do hands-on support if you need it a la carte. So in other words, everything you need as little as $20, but there's a money-back guarantee on any of the things that are not personal service. So calls are free. Hands-on support is paid. I'm not refunding hands-on support after it's done, but if you try any of the other stuff, just within 30 days, say, Spence, I don't want to stay. Guess how many people have canceled on me? 0 in many moons. I only had one person in the last 5 years who've ever asked for their money back. And that's after they spent 3-4 months with me, which was just, I think they had some personal stuff they had to deal with. So I want to say thanks. I'm very grateful for all you guys. Do watch the replay. Tell your friends, come along on board, because last part, everything I show you here about my business model, the kit, everything else is sold downstream. You just double what I'm doing and it's a win. I'm the platform. Your clients, you sign up for $97 a month. You sign up the client and you double the price, $97 more for you, plus any of your a la carte services. And all of a sudden you get $20 from me plus your 97. You're making $117 a month. That's $1,400 a person per year. And you've got me on your back, like just your wholesale supplier. Adam's awesome. SureCart, his products are awesome. This is not going to work with SureCart. Here's why. We got to become friends, because when you look at my history, I'm best buddies with Adam and Sujay. When they hired me in 2019 to help with cart flows, that's what got me started on this whole thing to do the launch flows and all the other things, because they're doing things that I think are awesome, but I do not agree with as the easier path. And SureCart takes you out of this whole ecosystem of WooCommerce, which is too awesome to leave. I'm sorry. But I do love Adam. I do love his products. That's like joining his flavor of ice cream. I am not interested in that, but I do think it's awesome for those who want. Those streams are not going to cross. Okay. I'll talk more next, but I just wanted to close by saying everything I'm doing is designed for implementers and people who have multiple clients so that you can profit by using this in a way that you still and your clients still have full ownership and control. And we just escape the craziness because the stuff under the hood is awesome. And combined with the new tricks and tips, I was talking to Ann yesterday, I'm going to be so excited because I've just got this thing lit underneath me of all the neat things that I can show you. It's infinite, where you can just go like, don't tell anybody. Just took that TV dinner out of the Spence world and delivered to a client. And Spence can even show up in your calls if you need me to sell the client. You're doing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 projects for a client that you can deliver with just a couple hours of work because we've already figured all the stuff out. But the client doesn't care. Just like I don't care that I've got an iPhone that 1 trillion people have, neither do my kids. I just want mine. I'll see you guys on the next session. Talk to you.